Our honorable and prestigious guest for today is Mr. Sean Covey. I would like to introduce our honorable interview panel. We have with us Abdul Hadi Khan, Ammar Bilal, and Hawa Hameed. Okay, over to the students now.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Abdul Hadi Khan. I have matriculated from Sanjay Nagar Public Education Trust School and I am now studying at Government College University Lahore.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Ammar Bilal. I am an IBDP learner at Beacon House, Gulberg campus. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Hawa Hameed and I am from Beacon House Liberty Campus, Lahore. It is an honor to welcome you all and our guest, Mr. Sean Covey, who has joined us online. Good morning, Mr. Covey. Mr. Sean Covey is the president of FranklinCovey Education and is devoted to transforming education throughout the world through the use of principle-centered leadership approach. Not only that, but Mr. Sean Covey also oversees FranklinCovey's whole school transformation process called Leader in Me, which is now in over 4,000 schools and 50 countries throughout the world, including Beacon House. Mr. Sean Covey is also a New York Times best-selling author and has written several books, including The 6 Most Important Decisions You'll Ever Make, The 7 Habits of Happy Kids, and most importantly, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, which has been translated, might I add, into 20 different languages and has sold over 8 million copies worldwide. So, Mr. Sean, to start off, I'd like to ask a question that has been at the forefront of my mind for quite some time. How is it that you actually came about to figure out these 7 habits in the first place?
Okay, well, hello everybody. It's really good to be with you. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. So good morning, it's late evening where I'm at right now. I'm having a speech at midnight, which is awesome. So my father is Stephen R. Covey. And years ago, he wrote this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it was an international bestseller. It was the best-selling business book of all time. It did just really, really well. And so when I read it, I remember thinking I was younger then. I remember thinking, boy, these habits are so powerful. Being proactive, that means taking responsibility for your life. Beginning with the end in mind is having a clear plan and a goal for your life. Sharpen the saws, habit 7, which means you have a body, heart, mind, and a soul. You've got to take care of all 4 parts of yourself. When I read the book, I thought, wow, this is so powerful. I wonder if I could make it come alive for teenagers. At the time, I was an American football player and had the opportunity to speak to a lot of teenagers all the time. And so that was on my mind. And so I took these habits and I thought, I'm going to apply them to the teenage experience. All the things they have to deal with, like school and dealing with friends and dealing with addictive substances and how to get along with parents and so forth, boyfriends and girlfriends, all that stuff. And so that's what I did. And I took these powerful habits and I applied them to teenagers. And I had hundreds of teenagers that I got involved with me that I would have read chapters and share stories to make it come alive for them. So that's how I ended up writing the 7 Habits for Teens.
Yes, Mr. Covey, that is truly inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, so Mr. Covey, I hope that you are doing well. So my question is, it is never too late to be what you might have been, says George Eliot. So do you believe that the adults who might not have gotten the opportunity to develop these habits may develop them now?
Well, I agree with you. I think it's never too late to start. And, whether you learn these habits when you're young or old, I think it's always a good time. The best time to plant a tree is 7 years ago. And the best next time is now, right? We teach the 7 habits now to kids as young as 5 years old, and we've been amazed to see that kids understand these habits. They can get it because, unlike adults, sometimes they don't have things to unlearn. They just know intuitively that these are correct principles. But if you haven't gotten these habits until you're older, that's okay too. I try to live the habits. I probably do them 80% of the time, but the other 20% I'm trying. These habits are hard. I remember growing up in my home. My father is the creator of the 7 habits. He was always trying to teach us these principles behind the habits. So, for example, if I'd come home from school and I'd say something like, "Oh, Dad, I'm gonna flunk my algebra class. It's because of my teacher. He's the worst." My father would always take me aside and sit me down and say, "Hey, Sean, check out your language. You're talking about flunking math and you're blaming it on your teacher. That's being a victim. And if you have a problem with your teacher, go talk with your teacher. Don't talk about him." And I'd say, "Oh, I'm 16 years old," and I'm thinking, "Dad, you're crazy. Where's Mom?" And then I would go and talk with Mom, and she would let me blame other people for my problems. But I was taught these habits at a young age when I was in my teenage years. But I learned these habits, and I saw that they worked. Each of these habits is important. So, for example, one of the habits is seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is habit 5. And my father was really good at modeling this. So he was a very good listener. I remember him oftentimes sitting down, and I would be complaining or talking about something. He'd sit down and just really listen thoroughly to my needs. And I could feel understood. And so that made all the difference in my life, just to feel my father understands me. And so these habits were being modeled at a young age. But I would just say, even if you're an older adult and you have kids, these habits are powerful. And this is a methodology to get better. The 7 habits are based on an inside-out approach. It starts with you. Start with yourself. Develop some security by being proactive and getting your end in mind very clear and putting first things first. And then, and only then, are you more capable of getting along well with other people, which is the public victory, thinking win-win, seeking first to understand, and synergizing. So it's never too late to start, but I think it's always really good to start young if you can.
Hello. So I suggest all the people here to learn these habits and develop them.
Mr. Covey, in today's fast-paced world, teenagers have to juggle between a lot of different things, ranging from academics to extracurriculars, friends, families, relationships. And the attainment of balance in these tumultuous times of teenage can be seemingly impossible. My question to you is, which of the 7 habits do you think is the most important in fostering balance in a teenager's life?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think of all the habits that help with balance. I mean, habit 7 is about balance. So think about a car, right? A car has 4 tires. And if one tire is flat or even low on air, what will happen is all the other tires will also wear unevenly. And so you think about, you've got a body, a heart, a mind, and a spirit, 4 sides to you. Physical body, your mental mind, your heart, this is relationships. Your soul, I refer to things that inspire you. Where do you get your motivation and what's deep inside you that way? But all 4 of these are like 4 tires on a car, and you've got to keep them balanced. And you got to keep them all with the proper air, because if one is out of balance, sometimes teenagers can, for example, go so hard in school, trying to get the best possible grades and take the most advanced placement classes and do concurrent enrollment with colleges, and that's fine. I encourage going hard in school, but if you do it at the neglect of like relationships, that's in the end is going to hurt you. Or if you neglect your physical body and just don't take care of yourself, over time it'll catch up to you eventually. And I know this is easier said than done because, I struggle sometimes with balancing everything. So you do the best you can, but you always got to remember you've got 4 parts to you, and all 4 are important. My father, growing up, I remember several occasions, like I'm one of 9 kids in my family. So I had 8 brothers and sisters, and sometimes one of us would like get ahead academically, and people would say, well, do you want to skip a grade? Do you want to go from 5th grade to 7th grade? And my father was really wise, and he'd always say, you know what, the social emotional development is probably more important than academic development. So no, don't skip a year, because you want to develop emotionally at a good pace, at a good clip. And so he taught me the importance of that the heart side, the relationships is so important. Social emotional learning how to get along well with other people, how to make and keep friends is so vital. And for those of you in the audience that are older, you know full well that your ability to get along with other people, to resolve issues, to think creatively with others, to appreciate differences is so absolutely necessary in today's work environment. And it's just as important, if not more important, than reading, writing, and math and science. So nothing wrong with those. Those are important too. But your social, emotional, people, relationship skills is vital as well. So all 4 parts need to be exercised. On your body, you need to exercise, take good care of yourself, try to eat well. Spiritually, your soul, just whatever it is that motivates you. Everyone does this as kind of a private area. Some people, get out into nature. Some people read inspiring literature. Some people read sacred literature. Some people pray. Some people meditate. But keeping that side of you sharp as well. So do the best you can, teenagers, because it's hard. And sometimes you have seasons of imbalance where you have to go for a couple of weeks really hard, and that's okay. But over time, you've got to keep all 4 sides in balance. That's what it means to sharpen the saw.
Thank you, Mr. Covey.
Yeah, so Mr. Covey, my question is, there exists a comparison between the education systems of the first world countries and the third world countries. So do you believe that these 7 habits are flexible enough to be incorporated in any of the educational system?
Yes, these are really good questions. You guys are smart. So very, very good question. Yes, I do. I think these habits are flexible. We have a program called The Leader in Me. There's a lot of schools in Pakistan that are doing Leader in Me, and in India, and in China, and in Europe, and in Latin America, and in wealthier countries, first world countries, and third world countries. And the Leader in Me teaches the 7 habits and other leadership skills. And we do it with kindergartners, first, second, third grade, all the way up to 12th graders. And it works really well everywhere because the 7 habits are based on principles. Okay, so I'm holding up this pen right here. If I drop this pen, it's predictable, right? It falls to the ground because of gravity. Gravity is a principle. And if I'm there in Pakistan and drop this, same thing would happen. Well, in like manner, there are principles that govern relationships and human effectiveness. So the 7 habits are based on these principles, and this is why they work so well. So, for example, habit 4 is called think, win-win. And it means that I care about me and I care about you. It's a habit of mutual benefit. That's a principle. The principle is mutual benefit. We both matter. Okay? Habit 6 is called synergize. It's the principle of differences and valuing differences and how that can be an advantage, not something to be afraid of. These are principles. Habit 7, we just talked about it, is the principle of renewal. So that's the correct principle. It governs. It's like gravity. My phone has a compass on it, and if I turn it on, it will point to true north. Where north is. Okay, so there it is. That's north right here. And you've got north in your country. Your compass is gonna point north. It's true. That's like principles. They're always right. They won't lead you astray. And so, yes, I think the 7 habits work well in any country, rich or poor, modern or developing, because they're based on these timeless principles.
Yeah, so you mean to say that these 7 habits are like 7 principles?
That's a good way of saying it. Yes, they're like 7 principles.
Yeah, that's great.
And the Leader in Me program you just mentioned, it's been adopted by the Beacon House Group as well, and it's working pretty well.
Oh, that's great to hear. Good job.
Mr.
awesome.
Covey, a major social flaw which has inflicted our society is the lack of tolerance and the lack of the will to coexist. There are growing divisions based upon race, religion, gender, and socioeconomic status. My question to you is, how can the 7 habits be used to promote and foster an environment of coexistence between different wavelengths?
Yes. Well, that's a really good question again. Very good question. The 7 habits is designed to do that very thing. See, my father, when he developed these, basically think about what he did. He's a professor, right? And he's at a university, and he starts to study why are some people really happy and successful and effective and others aren't? And then why are certain organizations effective and thriving and others don't? And why do certain teams and so on? And so he studied that, and he didn't discover anything. He basically detected what was going on and said, these are the habits that make people effective. And he figured out that there's a private victory, meaning it starts with you. You've got to win yourself first. And then there's a public victory, which is winning with other people. And that effective people aren't just good individually, because life is a team sport. You got to get along well with other people. You need to value differences and appreciate differences from other people, because we all bring something different to the table, whether it's religious or gender or a background or experiences or the way we think or the way we're wired. That's what creates the beautiful combustion of getting ideas together that can create something extraordinary. So, private victory, habits 1, 2, and 3, give me security. Okay, I'm okay with myself. I'm proactive. I take responsibility for my life. I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim to what's happened to me. Maybe some hard things that I grew up seeing or experiencing. I'm not a victim to my environment that I was grown up in. I'm not a victim to how my parents raised me. I can choose. Those things influence me for sure, but I am free to choose, right? And then I begin with the end in mind. This is my mission. These are my goals. These are my values. And then you put first things first. So that is the private victory, and that will help you become secure. Then you can win a public victory, meaning you can get along well with other people. So the habits are all about getting to synergy. It's all about effectiveness, because we, in marriages, in partnerships, we have, husbands and wives, and they got to learn to get along, and they have differences. And at work, you have colleagues that think differently and come from different countries and speak different languages and have different religious backgrounds, and that can be a positive thing. The world has become increasingly contentious and divisive. Right now, the United States has an election next Tuesday, and I don't like the environment that it's created. It's very like the other side, whatever side you're on, they look at the other side as being not just thinking differently, but bad. You know, you guys are bad people. The world is increasingly becoming contentious, and that's not a good thing. And the 7 habits, I think, is its time has come. The 7 habits have never been more relevant than they are today in this contentious, conflicted world. And we need them more than ever. We need to win these private victories, and we need to learn how to think win-win and care about other people and ourselves simultaneously, and listen with respect and honor. When you talk with another person, you're walking on sacred ground, because every person is precious and has got something to offer. And in my own experience running a business, I've learned that I love to surround myself with people that think differently than me. Because if I have someone that's just like me in every way, the person's unnecessary. I need different thoughts, different ways of seeing the world, and that creates something, a situation where your thinking and my thinking can create something that's better than what you have in mind and what I have in mind. That's the third alternative. It's a better way. It's a higher way. So that's a long answer to your short question, sir. But yes, I think 7 habits can help resolve a lot of these societal contentious conflicts that we're having right now.
So if I'm not wrong, habits 4 till 7 focus upon relationship building, and that's why they sort of promote coexistence.
Yes, they promote coexistence. But it's more than coexistence. It's not like I tolerate you. It's like, no, I value you. I value you, and I value your differences. And together we can create something better. And that's habits 4, 5, and 6. Habit 7 is about keeping everything balanced, right? It kind of gets back to you personally.
Winning yourself first, I think that was my favorite part of the interview so far. And it reminds me of another quote actually. Small changes can make huge destination differences. Hopefully, you recognize this considering the fact that it's from one of your books, Highly Effective Teens. And it's a quote that really stuck with me. And now that I have this wonderful opportunity served to me on a silver platter, I have to ask this question, Mr. Covey. What do you think, in the context of the 7th habit, sharpening the saw, which basically lays emphasis upon self-growth through sharpening your skills, what are some small changes that a teenager can make to reach a destination where they're not only surviving, but they can strike a balance between their personal issues in a way that they can truly experience the profundity of life and work on growing as an individual? Because I feel that that is something that's very important, especially in today's time.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Well, some of the small changes you can make. So I'm talking here to all the teenagers in the audience right now. It's been a while since I was a teenager. I'm retired, but I do have 2 kids right now. I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old at home right now, and I've raised some other teens that are older. And I've just watched them over the last few years, and I've just noticed this, that I think it's very important as a teenager that you find something that you like doing and that you excel at it. It's great to get good at something. It doesn't really matter what it is, whether it's playing cricket or playing chess or getting really good at math. It's just really good to excel at something because it takes a lot of effort and patience and diligence and overcoming challenges and getting stuck and getting unstuck and so on. So a quick story for you. We just, came through COVID. I don't know what they did in your country, but in ours, they locked a lot of things down. There's a lot of political controversy about it all, but they really shut everything down. And so our schools shut down, and everyone wore masks, and you couldn't really go anywhere. And my daughter, Allie, okay, so she's a senior. She's in 12th grade here. She's 17. It really impacted her. She's very social and outgoing and loves to be with people. She gets energy from other people. Suddenly she's at home sitting, doing online school, wearing masks, not seeing anybody. And this went on for months and months. And she got depressed and anxiety, depression and anxiety. I'm just outright. She put on weight. She gained about 20 pounds. And then on social media, some people saw that she had gained weight. They made fun of her. She got bullied on social media, really bad a couple of times. I was so upset, and I called the school and told her what was going on. But it was kind of too late because it was out there, and it really sent her into a spiral of depression. And I didn't know what to do to help her. But the small thing that changed for her, she was in a bad place. The small thing that changed for her was her friend took her to the gym one time when COVID was starting to unravel a little bit. And she worked out, she lifted weights. She'd done other forms of exercise, but she went and lifted weights, and she fell in love with it. And then she started going with this friend of hers. And then after a while, she started going alone. And then she really fell in love with weightlifting, of all things. She loved going to the gym by herself, lifting weights. She said solitude. It gave her confidence. She got in shape. She lost the weight she had gained. And that one small little thing just got her right back into her normal self. And I look back on that, and I was just amazed by how one simple habit and one simple experience by going with a friend to do something just made all the difference. So sharpening the saw and keeping balance is such an important thing. I just encourage you to find things that you like to do, that you're good at. Sometimes try new things, jump outside of your comfort zone. Sometimes we can get so comfortable with the things that we're used to, friends that we're familiar with, that we never venture outside of this little circle here. So for Allie, going and lifting weights was out here. It was hard at first, and it was awkward. She didn't know what she was doing, but then over time, her circle expanded, right? And this comfort zone got bigger and bigger, and that's how things work. So, it might be something physical that gets you excited. It might be maybe you start reading new books. I have another daughter that was just really, she got her life would come alive when she would read books, and she loved Harry Potter, and she loved dystopia books. She got into all those. She got into the vampire books, Twilight, and that was her escape. I've got another son my son that's 14 that's home right now. He started to build computers, just fell in love with that, and so he'd go online and buy parts, and that was kind of his solace. So anyhow, just remember that it's okay to take care of yourself first. When you go on a plane flight, at the start they'll say, hey, in a case of an emergency, oxygen masks will fall down. Put one on yourself first, and if you've got a child next to you, put it on them next. Okay? It kind of seems cruel to be breathing well while your little baby's suffering. But the idea is, the principle is the same, right? Which is, first things first, you've got to take care of yourself so that you can contribute to the world and help other people. So never be too busy living your life to sharpen the saw. Never be too busy driving to take time to get gas, right? Never be too busy living to take time to sharpen the saw and renew yourself.
That was beautifully put, Mr. Covey. And I think a lot of the audience, myself included, really related to the examples that you gave, especially being a teenager. And everything that you said, I think it really we all felt very seen, very validated. So that was very wonderfully put.
Very good.
Mr. Covey, academic institutes are considered the building blocks of society and the foundations of modern civilization. My question to you is that how can academic institutes create an environment which can foster the 7 habits in the teenagers? We have the Leader in Me program with us, but is there something the schools have to do to foster the environment for the habits to be developed more effectively and efficiently in teenagers?
You're talking about post-secondary, like colleges, universities?
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think so. I travel the world and I meet with a lot of governments and educational leaders. Here's what I'm hearing. The employers of the world, okay, out in the workforce, what they're saying is this. Colleges and universities, post-secondary institutions need to do a better job of teaching students the critical life skills and work-related social emotional skills that they need. It's not enough to know how to read, write, and do math. I mean, of course you need to know that, right? But in addition, you've got to have these skills of how to get along well with other people, how to value differences, how to be adaptable and flexible, how to be a self-starter, how to set and achieve goals, how to manage your time well. I was in India a while back, and I met with government officials who said that we are thinking about creating a system of education between college graduation and the workforce, because the workforce is complaining so much about ill-prepared students that are coming to the workforce that have all the academic credentials but don't have the credentials that are these other credentials that are vital as well. And this is what the 7 habits do. They teach these credentials. They teach being a self-starter. They teach taking initiative, being flexible, being adaptable, setting and achieving goals, managing your time, managing conflict, thinking creatively, learning how to have good listening skills, not just good speaking skills. We're taught how to read, we're taught how to write, we're taught how to speak, but we're never taught how to listen in school, which is the most important communication skill of all. And so I've been all over the world. It's the same thing. The knowledge worker economy has changed the world. Now it's gone from, a manufacturing economy to knowledge workers. It's all about working well with other people, being collaborative, being flexible, thinking on your feet. You have 1,000 decisions to make. You got to decide which ones you're going to focus on. I mean, the world of work has changed completely, and it requires a different skill set. So this is why this Leader in Me program is just exploding around the world. 6,500 schools will bring on probably another 2,000 next year, because it teaches these critical life skills that are increasingly more important. So I think colleges and universities need to create an environment where these skills are taught in addition to classic curricula. And they create an environment like Leader in Me schools. One of the key things is turn the school over to the students. Let them run the school. Give them real leadership opportunities and responsibilities. Even little five-year-olds can take responsibility and can be leaders. Teach the students to be leaders and let them run tours, let them run audiovisual, let them run morning announcements, let them help each other with their schooling and so on. And colleges and universities can do the same thing. They need to provide opportunities for the kids to lead, and they need to teach these foundational. We historically have called them soft skills, but they've been renamed now power skills, because they're essential to every kind of job out there today. These basic foundational power skills. The 7 habits contain them perfectly.
So if I'm not wrong, having learner voice and choice at the forefront would enable academic institutes like colleges and universities foster the environment of promoting the 7 habits amongst learners.
Yes. Today I was just with dozens and dozens of universities at a big conference that are doing this very thing. They're teaching their students the 7 habits and their faculty as well. And it's remarkable the kind of results they're achieving, because it creates a common language that can be used among the staff and the students.
Yeah. So, Mr. Covey,
Interesting.
My next question is a bit tricky question, but I hope you'll not mind answering that. So my question is, what are your views on your book, Soul Pirated? Do you believe that the knowledge acquired through illegal, unethical, or unfair means is still some kind of knowledge?
So let me make sure I understand your question right. Do I believe that acquiring knowledge in an unethical way is a good thing?
Yeah,
Am I getting your question right?
yeah.
Yeah. Can you ask it a different way so that I can make sure I respond properly?
Yeah, I mean to say that your book is a great book. We all know that. But in some countries, it is also being sold pirated. So, do you think the people who read your book through the pirated ones, so is it the same knowledge or these are two different things?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I don't know what to tell you on that one. I think, um, I've clearly I don't support pirating, um, and I know that happens a lot. I remember my brother came back from India one time, and he said somebody was on the street selling Seven Habits books. Right? He had Seven Habits books, and my brother looked at him. He came over and looked at his stash of books, and on the back was a picture of it said Stephen R. Covey, but it wasn't him. It was a famous actor that looked like my dad. But the person had pirated the books and self-printed and got the wrong picture put in. So we had to laugh about that. Yeah, but of course, I believe in honoring and sustaining your local laws. Copyright, I think, is an important thing. But if someone got a pirated book and they read it and learned from it, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, so I got your point.
Yeah.
Teenagers, Mr. Covey, myself being one, whether that's fortunate or unfortunate is up to the audience to decide. We often feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders, and that's a very daunting feeling to have. So, since you were also a teenager once, did you, in your teen years, feel similar emotions? And if not, how did you manage to remain grounded in tough situations of life?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, I just say this to all the teenagers out there. Yes, I did. I felt overwhelmed a lot. I remember coming home sometimes and thinking I was playing, American football. I was a quarterback, so I was like the captain of the team, and I'd have a game on Friday, and then I'd have a test on Friday, and then a school application, the college application, and I'd come home and I'd just feel like I was going to blow up from all that stress. So you're normal. So don't worry about it. Don't struggle about the struggle because it is hard to juggle everything. And just do the best you can and sharpen your saw and know that you can get through it. Find things that relax you and do them. I had a good friend that we'd just get in the car and we'd drive up to the canyon. We'd go swimming in a river. That's how we would kick back and relax when I was a teen. But I see it in my daughters. My daughter, Allie. I told you about her, and she gets really stressed. Um, I a good practical thing you can do that I do with my daughter Allie is when she gets really stressed, I said, "Okay, come over here. Let's write down everything you have to do right now." We'd write it all out. There'd be like 15 things, and I'd say, "Okay, which ones can wait? Okay, those three can wait. Which ones could I help you with? Could I take anything off your plate? Okay, those two I can take off your plate. So you've got these 9 left. Let's prioritize them. What's got to be done right now? What's most important?" And just doing that would always relieves her. She can see more clearly what's happening. She realizes some things can wait. I can take things off her plate. So try that with your parents sometime. And I think it's a good practice. I will also say this too. Okay, the world's changed a lot since I was a teen. It is a challenging time to live, and it's an amazing time to live.
I completely agree.
And I think
Continue,
you're
please.
prepared. I think your teenagers are amazing. I think you're the best lot of teens ever this world has ever seen. It's challenging because because there's a lot of contention and division. The family is being disrupted. Technology here, in the United States, you know what it's like right now? The average teenager spends 35 hours a week on their phones. Okay, I don't know if that's happening in your country, but 35 hours a week on this phone, and a lot of it is not good. There's a new study that came out that showed there's a direct correlation between the amount of time you spend on social media and the amount of unhappiness in your life. So you got to be very careful with that. You got to rule your technology and not let it rule you. And you got to monitor your social media and make sure it doesn't take over. Mental wellness is a big issue, and COVID didn't help. A lot of kids just struggling mentally. So if you're one of those kids, you know what? You're normal. Okay, you're okay. Don't freak out about it. It's also an amazing time to live. It's the best time ever to live. You've got more knowledge, more learning. You can get on the internet, explore the world, explore history. It's amazing what we've got in front of us. You have all this technology, and it can be, if you use it responsibly, it can be an amazing thing to bless your life. The amount of influence you can have for good, because of the amount of people you can reach fast through technology and through travel, you can influence a lot of people for good, whether it's your own family or friend group or community or society or even the whole world. You have that opportunity unlike ever before. And then today, despite all of our challenges as a world and as a nation, there's more choice and more freedom than ever before. That's a beautiful thing to celebrate. So I'd just say, remember, even though there's a lot of challenges, it's also you can't think of a better time to be alive than right now. And I want to affirm your worth and potential, because each one of you is important, and you should not compare yourself to another person. Let me repeat that. You are of infinite worth and potential, each one of you. You don't need to ever compare yourself to another person and say, God, if only I had her looks, or if only I was good at this like he is, then I would be happy. No, you've got gifts and talents in and of yourself. You don't need to ever compare yourself. You're going to develop on your own time, in your own way. Each person has got gifts and talents that are unique, and so you be confident in what you bring to the table, and take advantage of this amazing place that we live in right now in this world with all these opportunities. Okay, so don't forget that.
So, Mr. Kavi, you gave an example of a car in which the wheels are the different aspects of a teenager, like character building, body, mind, spirit, heart. So, in today's world, in my experience, most of the schools are only targeting the curriculum and not focusing on other aspects of a child. So, do you think that curriculum targeted education hinders the thinking capability, critical thinking, and creativity of the young teens?
Do I think the curricula of today inhibits the creativity of students? Is that the question? That capture it?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So I think you said, does the curriculum that's taught in schools today, does it sometimes hinder the creativity of students?
Yeah, that's
Right?
what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think as I shared before, I'm a fan of schools. I'm a fan of public schools. I'm a fan of private schools. I don't care what kind of schools. I think most schools are doing the best they can with what they have. And so I'm pro school and I'm pro teacher. I admire our teachers. I think our teachers across the world are some of the best people in the world. I admire. They got into education because they care. So I'll start with that. Do I think that sometimes that we degeniusize kids? Yes. there's a classic quote that by Albert Schweitzer that says all kids are born geniuses, and we inadvertently degeniusize them by the time they're 10. But I do think that we can do a better job in our schools to honor and validate the different gifts that kids come with. Let me give you a quick example. So, Leader in Me started with a school called A.B. Combs Elementary in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a school, it's a public school, and they had a lot of poverty in the school. And they also had a lot of languages. 28 different languages were spoken in the school because it was in an area of the country where a lot of people were traveling in and out. So there were a lot of immigrants coming in and out. And so it was a difficult situation. The school was failing. Okay, this is an elementary school. So you've got kindergartners up to fifth graders. And they were failing. And so the principal is desperate, and she doesn't know what to do, and she's told that they're going to shut down the school unless they can make a change. Okay, so she's desperate. She finds out that Stephen Covey, my father, is speaking nearby. So she gins up the little money she has left in her professional development budget, and she goes to hear Stephen Covey speak. And he gets up and he speaks about the 7 habits, right? And she's listening and she's going, oh my goodness, this is exactly what our students need. So during a break, she gets her courage up. There's 1,000 people at this event, and she walks up and says, Dr. Covey, my name is Muriel Summers, and I am a principal of an elementary school that's really struggling. Can these 7 habits be taught to young kids? And he looks up and goes, well, I don't know why not. Why don't you give it a try and let me know how it goes? And so she came back and she got with her faculty and she said, let's try to save our school. And so they said, we're going to develop a leadership school. We're going to teach the kids leadership. We're going to teach them the 7 habits. And we're also going to celebrate the leadership ability of all these kids, because kids lead in different ways. Some are very academic, right? And some are very athletic, but some are very musical. And some are very good at getting along with other people. And some are very good at technology. And there's so many different gifts and talents. And sometimes our schools only reward the pure academic gifts. And she broadened it. And she said, no, this is a leadership school. And there are hundreds of ways to lead. And we're going to celebrate your different leadership styles. And so I remember visiting her school, because 3 years later, they got named, a failing school got named the #1 school in America. Okay, #1 in America. Same kids, poverty, and she created the most creative kids you've ever seen. I went and visited the school, and they had such self-confidence. And what she did is everyone had a leadership role and responsibility in the school. There were 800 kids. Everyone had a leadership role and responsibility, something they were good at. For example, she would have like 4 kids that really were good at talking. They were good at conversation, and they loved the limelight, right? So she had these kids do morning announcements. Instead of having her staff members do them, she had these 4 kids do morning announcements every day. Other kids were really good, they're just really friendly, so they became classroom greeters. They would come early to school, and they would greet everyone that would come into their classroom, and so on. But she created the most creative school I've ever visited in my life, and it was all because of it's celebrating all the different gifts and talents of students, not just the academic talents that sometimes we just celebrate, or the athletic talents. So that's something to keep in mind, that I think schools can do, and parents can do, teachers can do, to help create more creativity is to realize that, there's multiple intelligences, as we know, right? There's a broad spectrum of intelligences, and we should celebrate all of them and find opportunities for kids to express themselves in all of them.
Yeah, a balance should be created to analyze the abilities of children, as most of the children have abilities the others have don't, and the other way around. So a balance should be created. So we will moving on to the questions asked of the audience because of time is running out.
If anyone in the audience has any questions, we will be taking those now.
Yeah, these are already on the screen. So, what is the idea of happiness and success in your own words?
Happiness and success to me is contribution. I think nothing makes nothing makes me happier than when I can help somebody. And I'm not just saying that. I remember, I was a quarterback. I used to throw the football, and when I was younger, most thing that made me happiest was like doing really well and winning a game, throwing a touchdown pass. And then as I've gotten older, happiness to me now is helping someone that's maybe really hurting, and I can do something to relieve pain or to help them. So it's contribution. Ask yourself the question: where can I contribute? Listen to your conscience. Each of us we have these, as humans, we have 4 things animals don't have. You have a conscience, gives you the ability to detect right from wrong. You have self-awareness. You can stand apart from yourself and observe yourself and say, I don't like that about me, or I do like that, right? You have an imagination. You can imagine what 5 years from now is going to look like. Okay, your dog can't do that. And you have independent willpower. You can go against your instincts. You can behave how you want. It's your will. So these four gifts can help you tremendously in your life in different ways. And I recommend that you always remember that you've got these gifts to help you choose and contribute. So listen to your conscience and ask yourself, what is life asking of me right now? Or ask yourself, how can I be a better daughter or son in my home? Or how can I be a better friend? And then just listen and feel, and you've got self-awareness and you've got a conscience, and you'll feel and sense things in your heart, and that's uniquely human. Okay, and you can that's how you, I think, achieve happiness is by following these impressions you get in your mind and your heart of what to do, what's right, where to go, how to help.
That was very well put, Mr. Covey. I think a question a lot of the teenagers in the audience and myself would like to ask is, what is it like to be Franklin Covey's child? And another question I'd like to ask, are all your siblings able to adapt to the 7 habits that you've written about?
Do they? Okay, well, so good question. Yeah, so my father was Stephen Covey, and again, I'm one of 9 kids. But our home was pretty normal. We weren't perfect. We had struggles. We had fights. We didn't want to share. There was jealousies and rivalries. We were a typical family in that way. Here's what my mom and dad did well. Mom and dad were really good at sitting us down and saying, okay, we'd set goals as a family. I encourage you to do that. Set goals as a family. And then when we'd make mistakes, my parents would always apologize. My dad, when he was younger, kind of had a temper, right? We would go on trips, like go on vacations, and everybody would take forever to get ready, to get into the car. He'd kind of lose his temper and yell at us. And then he would get in the car and we'd be driving, and about an hour into it, he'd say, "Oh boy, kids, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have raised my voice like I did. I apologize." And we'd say, "Okay, Dad, we forgive you." But it just taught me that, you know, he's human and he can apologize, and it's okay to make a mistake. So my parents were really good at just trying again, starting over, forgiving. If you don't have a forgiving home, it'll be really hard. Everyone's got to forgive each other because you're all going to make mistakes. So growing up in my home was, I think, pretty normal. But we were taught these habits when we were young. You know, it wasn't like forced on us. It was just kind of naturally happening in the flow of life, right?
I
The
think
seven
that
habits
is-
weren't named. They
Yeah.
weren't named yet until I got older.
But thank you so much for sharing. I think we can all relate to the part where you're
Yeah.
rushing to get ready and there are a million things to do and you sit in the car and you're being screamed at and your sister's doing her makeup and your brother's whining about something. But in the end, it's all
Yeah.
about making sure that you care about each other and the relationships that you build. This was truly a very fruitful talk, Mr. Covey. And on behalf of Beacon House, I would like to thank Hadi, Ammar, Mr. Covey, of course, and our amazing audience, our very lively audience, for participating in edition 15 Guardians of the Future.